toxic relationship can chain you down and suffocate you. But how do you move on? In this video, we'll go through Johnny Depp's situation and also share advice from Dr. Andrew Huberman, professor and neuroscientist from Stanford, about this. From trending news to learning advice, we take global situations and share advice from some of the best out there. Let's jump in. Just in case you're finding it hard to define a toxic relationship, cast your mind back to the Johnny Depp and Amber Heard's trial. That was definitely messy. Every time I think about it, I ask myself, how exactly did they live like this for that long? I can't begin to imagine the emotional turmoil and hurt that Depp went through, or the amount of psychological damage that Amber Heard must have experienced at some point in her life to turn her into such an abuser. For me, there were no victors, only victims, who kept themselves in a cage for far too long. But this video isn't about that. It's about Johnny Depp and his new love interest, Joelle Rich. Only a few months ago, sources claimed that Johnny Depp had started dating his one-time attorney, Joelle Rich. Of course, this news was met with pandemonium, with some fans believing that it was too soon and others wishing him well. Some others just thought that Joelle Rich was wrong for leaving her husband and 2 kids to go for Johnny Depp, who they insisted couldn't be looking for anything serious. Well, not too long after, some sources then claimed they had split up, but recent news seems to say otherwise. For starters, Joelle has been spotted backstage supporting Depp on his tour with Jeff Beck in Las Vegas. She also posted a photo of Depp at the gig and captioned it with a large heart. Now, we could be wrong, and maybe these are simply gestures of a good friendship. I'd like to think otherwise. But yet again, maybe we're wrong, and there's nothing there. In this video, I'll just talk about moving on and healing from toxic relationships. Do you think it's too soon for Depp to be in a new relationship? Joelle herself is estranged from her husband and in the middle of a divorce. Are they both ready for this step? That's if it exists, of course. There are no right or wrong answers. I just want to share some tips from Dr. Andrew Huberman that I think may help us understand relationships better and specifically navigate new ones after being burnt in the past. For those who don't know, Dr. Andrew Huberman is a professor of neurobiology and ophthalmology at the Stanford School of Medicine. Dr. Huberman discusses science for everyday life. He explores the themes of grief, love, attachment, and motivation through the lens of neuroregeneration and neuroplasticity. So let's get right into it. The first tip you must note is this. Dr. Andrew Huberman states that our childhood attachment styles influence our adult attachment styles. He says that the same neural circuits that underlie attachment between infant and caregiver through adolescence and teenage years are the same circuits that are repurposed for adult romantic attachments. There's a lot more that went into this study, such as some of the individual attachment styles that we have, but we don't have enough time to go into that. I started with this because introspection never fails. What we find most of the time is that people stay in toxic relationships due to underlying childhood trauma or experience. You must ask yourself, how did you enter a toxic relationship? How did you miss the signs? Why did you stay as long as you did when you realized it? Is it possible that there's something in your childhood you need to look out for? If you aren't strong enough to ask yourself these questions yet, then you shouldn't be entering any new relationships. Until you come to a place where you've settled with your past, there's no real moving forward, just going around in circles. Dr. Andrew Huberman's second tip for moving on from toxic relationships is to aim for a healthy interdependence on our partners rather than an absolute dependence on them. Let me explain. We all have different levels of autonomic function. We react differently to partners being present or leaving. Some studies say that some who experience breakups suffer symptoms very similar to clinical depression. Others find it easier to bounce back or readjust from distraught to calm. Dr. Huberman suggests that we, first of all, recognize where we are in terms of our autonomic function. What happens when we are away from our partners for long periods? Do we constantly need their presence? He believes that we can regulate our autonomic nervous system such that we can control our reactions to their presence or absence. Don't build a system where you can't exist without the other person. This is important for people entering new relationships. Interdependence is great. Dependence isn't. See you next time. Please subscribe, leave a comment, and a thumbs up.